The 2021 Acura TLX is the top-selling luxury sedan in St. Louis, and St. Louis Acura has an unbeatable selection. The TLX has the highest safety rating, and right now you can get $2,500 in Loyalty Conquest offers with 0% financing for up to 36 months. We offer free pickup and delivery, and we'll also buy your used vehicle, even if you don't buy from us. St. Louis Acura, committed to becoming better than ever for you.
Hey, welcome into Weekend Joe, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura and Munganass Alton Toyota here on ClaibsOnline.com. As we go now to our first guest for the show today, he is the Hall of Famer. He is from the Boston Globe. It's Dan Shaughnessy. Dan, welcome on in. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You have a new book coming out called Wish It Lasted Forever, which I know is a lot of basketball talk, a lot of Boston Celtics talk, which here in St. Louis, I have a feeling the Celtics have a pretty good following now due to what Jason Tatum has done for your organization over the last several years.
Yeah, I know Bradley Beal and Jason Tatum have a great connection and growing up there and being great star players in the league. And, of course, for the old-timers out there, if you have any in your audience, I mean, St. Louis was pivotal to the Celtics' early success, back in the 50s when the Hawks were great, Bob Pettit and all that. And the Celtics' first championship with Bill Russell was won against the Hawks in 1957. And there was a lot of rivalry in those days between the St. Louis Hawks and the Boston Celtics. And, of course, sorry y'all lost the Hawks and the Celtics have gone on, but we love it anyway. There's good Boston-St. Louis rivalries for everybody because we had that, World Series in 2004 and 2013. I'm old enough to remember the 67 when the Cardinals got the Sox. And, of course, we were all there a couple of years ago when St. Louis Blues won their first Stanley Cup and beat the Bruins in a 7-game series, winning Game 7 on the Garden Ice in Boston. That one still hurts here.
Hey, don't forget, too, about the Patriots' first Super Bowl was also against the St. Louis Rams, too. So it really does. It encompasses all sports, and the Blues were finally able to break that curse over those Boston teams.
I'm pretty sure it's the only two cities that played each other in all four sports in a championship final. I don't think that's happened in any other stuff. I could be wrong, but I think we researched that at the time because, having the Blues and the Bruins, and there was a lot of good history there. And I was in St. Louis for all those, the games we had there, the 3 games there, and your town's great. It was just a great place, and we really enjoyed our time there. And the Blues had trouble at home in that series, but they ended up, they certainly prevailed on the Garden.
Yeah, they did. It was something to look back on, and it feels like the last the last 2 years of hockey and really for all sports just haven't felt like it's been truly there. And now we're finally getting back into it for that. But I do want to talk about this. Well, first of all, too, with all that, we talked a lot about the history in the last 20 some years of Boston St. Louis sports. What is the general feel right now in the Boston area about just sports in general, with the way all 4 franchises are trending?
Well, it's come back to earth quite a bit. I mean, the first part of this century, we had 12 championship parades here in the 21st century, and the Sox winning 4, and the Patriots winning 6, Celtics 1, Bruins 1. But it's come back to earth a little bit last few years. I mean, the Sox got to the Final Four of baseball this year. That's an achievement. Didn't make it to the World Series, and the Cardinals, as we know, are there every year, and the Celtics. We don't know. They got to the conference finals 3 times in 4 years. Tatum was there for all that as a really young player. They've gone backwards a little bit, and now you got Jason Tatum and that Jaylen Brown. They're the 2 guys, and they really don't have as much supporting cast as when they had Kyrie Irving and Hayward and those other guys, and a younger Al Horford. So I'm not quite sure where that's going. Bruins are always in competition. The core, the same guys who played the Blues those years ago. We have Bergeron, Marchand. Those guys are still there, and we don't know how, that's always in the spring. You get hot, do the whole thing. I don't know. The Patriots are interesting right now because they got the rookie quarterback. They're 5-4. They would be in the playoffs if it started today. They're not what they were under Brady and all those years, but it's starting to come back in a pretty good way. There's a lot of parity, especially in the AFC right now. So they got a shot. They're viable here again.
So this is, you're going to have plenty more, I would imagine, material to write books on in the future based on the last 2 decades. But this is book number 13 that we're talking about today, Wish It Lasted Forever, which is going to be released nationally on Tuesday, the 16th. How long for a book like this that goes back to the 70s and 80s? When do you first start writing this? When do you come up with the idea for a book like this?
It's really it's a pandemic project. I mean, you go back to when we were all in our houses and there was no sports. There was no sports that time at the beginning of this thing. March, April, May, June 2020, just dreadful times, no live sports. And there was, the Last Dance was kind of a thing. People would set their watch by to watch on Sunday night, see the whole Jordan thing, and kind of reminded everybody of the ball in the 80s and 90s and how it was a little bit different then and pretty attractive. And the league was at a very high point of popularity. And then locally, I don't know how it was in your market, but they would show the Celtics classics from 86, 84, Larry Bird, Bill Walton, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. And I kept seeing my young self on the video because in those days, they wouldn't sell those seats. The media was right there. They were too stupid to figure out they could make, $5,000 selling the seats they were giving us for free every night because we were sitting right next to the bench. And I was in my late 20s as the beat reporter for those Celtics in the 80s when they won 3 championships. They got to 5 finals. They played the Lakers 4 times, made 4 finals in a row, all that stuff. So it was a very exciting time. And seeing all that, and my literary agents, smart guy, says, "Hey, you've been telling those stories in bars for 40 years about all those days with Larry Bird and Dennis Johnson and Cedric Maxwell, and put that in a book here while we're all sitting around." So, so instead of people having babies out of the pandemic, you're getting all these books now, 9 months later and all that stuff. And this is one of them. It's a pandemic book. And one of the things, Joe, you could call people. You call Bill Walton, you call Kevin McHale. Everybody's home. No one was going anywhere, so you could reach people and have conversations about the old days. And this is it's a fun romp. I mean, I don't want to promote it as the league was so much better then. It was so much more fun to watch, but it was, and it is, and it was just a joyous time to be young and to be covering the NBA. And I do think it was a better product then, and it's a little bit look back, but it's really fun. These guys, see, these days we really got to know them. Like today's writers, it's not their fault, but there's a moat around the players, and you can't get near them. You sign waivers, you won't approach them off campus and this sort of thing. But in our day, we travel with them. And this is the old guy talking here. We flew commercial, stayed in the hotels, rode the buses, went to practice, waited for bags, all that stuff. So you can really tell your readers what they're like. You could tell them what Larry Bird's like, what Cedric Maxwell's like, what Bill Walton's like. And we were, other than not having the money or the groupies or the fame, we were just like players on the team. We were with them all the time. So that was kind of a magical time, and you were able to really capture that. And there was a lot of, just busting chops and back and forth. And that particular Celtic team had a lot of trash talkers and guys who were very secure in their own skins with how good they were. And they didn't mind going back and forth with the writers in those days. So there's a lot of good, fun stuff in there.
That what you just said, it reminded me. I've heard stories. Rick Hummel, who I'm sure you're aware of, he is the stories that I've heard of the Cardinal teams that he's covered and the relationships he has with those guys, or even my boss Mike Claiborne and some of the friendships that he has with some of the legendary Cardinal players. It seems like around the time that social media started to come out and these players were put more in a spotlight is kind of when they also started to pull back a little bit. That now you're seeing today's players just maybe staying in their hotel rooms and kind of keeping away because instead of just hanging out at a bar, now it's one tweet away could ruin a career for something they could be out doing. So
absolutely, absolutely true. It's very guarded now. We understand that, and they don't need the newspaper writers anymore. I mean, nobody cares. Nobody reads the paper. People get their information in all the digital platforms and the players can kind of skip past that middleman kind of thing that we were and interact directly with their fans. So it's changed. It's nobody's fault. You don't bay at the moon, say this was better then and this was so great and they don't have it now. But this is the way it's evolved. But this is a chance to capture what it was like when it was different and when we were kind of relevant to what they were up to. And we were able to tell you, the readers, the fans, what these guys were like.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about picking up the phone for somebody that books guests for a living to talk to. That was such a great time,
right?
Because nobody had an excuse.
No.
They couldn't say, I'm out, I got to cover a game. I'm out with the family. It's no, you're home. We all know you're home.
Everybody's home.
So it was great. So when you call Bill Walton, how long do you stay on the phone with him?
Well, you know the drill on this, Joe. I mean, Bill thinks of the Celtics as a life-changing experience to him. He will say, the Celtics saved my life. They gave me my life back. And, he was a little bit of an intimidating guy at UCLA in the early years in Portland with the ponytail and kind of a mystical creature and little shy and not really cooperative. But then by the time we got him in Boston, he was so grateful to be playing basketball again, doing what he loved and being on this team with Larry Bird. And, I mean, wait till you see the quotes in this book from him. He said, Dan, empty the thesaurus when you write this book. You can say anything you want about how great this was. And the title comes from him. He said, I wish it lasted forever. And that became the title of the book. And Bill's he gushes about this as only Bill can do. Get him on the show and, just walk out of the studio for 3 hours and he'll still be talking when you come back.
So I gotta come clean. I am 36 and I was born in Chicago.
Yeah.
So my NBA life that I know, the coverage and everything
sure.
is the Bulls, is the 6 championships. So but when I look back and I see highlights and you look at the run that those Celtics teams went on or the teams that they had, I mean, you see these super teams now of guys, of friends that are put together. But I mean, back then, that was those Celtics teams then of Bird and Parrish and those guys. I mean, McHale, those were super teams that the front office put together, that they drafted. Right. And you're never going to see something like that again.
No, that was organic, how it came together. It was deal making. It wasn't guys meeting at the All-Star game and agreeing to join each other and shooting their way out of town where they are. This was like Red Auerbach figuring out how to assemble this team. And the 85-86 team, I know things change. Guys get bigger, more athletic, faster, whatever. But the 85-86, and I talked to a lot of them at the end, and this is the last chapter. Kevin McHale says, hey, if you let us play by the rules of 1986, I'll take our chances. I mean, they were 50-1 at home, 50-1 at home. And they mailed it in some days and didn't try that hard. There was 5 Hall of Famers, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Larry Bird, Dennis Johnson, Bill Walton. He's coming off the bench. Danny Ainge is the 6th player. He's starting. It was crazy good, and they just killed everybody. And I don't know. I think that it's hard to compare eras. We understand that, but again, the size thing. This is a team. Walton's 7'2", Parrish is 7 feet. McHale's 6'10" with 7-foot arms. Bird was 6'9", farm strong. Dennis Johnson's a 6'4" guard who could just post up with magic. So they were physical. They translate to today's game. It's not the same game, but the inside-out way they played, their ability to pass the ball, defend, a lot of it's the way the rules are. There was a lot of just hacking. McHale said we would have all fouled out in the first quarter. So if they were applying the rules today, but it wasn't like that then. And it was a good product, and I think that's a team that holds up well in the scheme of NBA history.
Oh yeah, the teams, those Piston teams that you see in the fouls that they that they would be called for, and some of the stuff there. So, maybe this is just I'm in a non-NBA market, but maybe you correct me if I'm wrong. Being in the Boston area, Larry Bird's a top 10 player of all time. It still seems like he's underappreciated for what he did in his career.
Well, I think he's not here. He's not in Boston, but I think that's probably true. And there's always going to be the bias. Well, he's a white guy, didn't jump that high, didn't run that fast kind of thing. But you look at what he did. He was MVP 3 consecutive years in a league that had Magic and Michael Jordan. He's MVP in 83, 84, 85, and gets to the finals 4 straight years. He was on the dream team when it was near the end of his career. It translates pretty well, I think, in any era because of the passing, the rebounding. Wasn't a great defender. Wasn't particularly fast. We know that. But he obviously had the long range. They weren't taking a lot of threes then. He might shoot 200 in a season, but now he's shooting 1,000, more than that, whatever. So I think that would have translated pretty well. He won the first three-point contest in the NBA history that had the All-Star game. So he had that part of his game, no question. And I just think that that's an athlete whose skill set translates to any era.
Are there any stories that you had to leave out of this book from your times hanging out with them, or something Bill Walton told you that you thought, you know what, maybe not?
I mean, there was hijinks and stuff that, I mean, the stuff that we could put in that you couldn't write today. You know, when Bill Walton turned, I think it was 34, he was first year here in November. His birthday's in November. And in 1985, you know, his wife hired a stripper to come to practice and to do her performance at the end of practice at a Greek Orthodox college, you know, with 2 Mormons on the team. And it was, you know, this is not the kind of stuff you could do today. I mean, I wrote about it. We had a cartoon of the girl popping out of the cake, and the player's wife had commissioned the strippers to do the drill. And I mean, they put Bill in a chair in the middle of the court, and all this happened. And that stuff would not fly today. I mean, there's a lot of kind of hijinks that's a weird thing to do. And you know, you got Larry Bird setting up his teammate to meet him at a gay bar and not telling him it's a gay bar, and the guy shows up and Larry doesn't show up, and the guy's there like, what am I doing here? And just like stuff that, you know, it's a little risky. I mean, there's some things in this book that, again, you could not cover them and do it in a straight way today and say this is okay, because that was just the times that we lived in, and things were a little bit less, I don't know, sensitive, or you didn't touch nerves in those days the way you do now.
The book again is called Wish It Lasted Forever. It's available on Tuesday, November 16th. I imagine online and at all bookstores, wherever people go and get their reading material these days.
Yeah, we'll be out there. You can pre-order it on Amazon. It'll be on all the stores starting on Tuesday.
Dan, thank you so much. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of great stories in here for all kinds. I mean, sports fans in general, because I feel like nowadays Bill Walton has just transcended all of sports
in a big way, and he deserves it. He's one of the most wonderful guys you could ever know. And don't forget, Larry Bird, big St. Louis Cardinals fan. You grew up in rural Southern Indiana. You're a Cardinals fan, and he loved his Cardinals.
Dan, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Joe.